Hello, hello, and welcome to Jung at Harp. Now, I am sure that the way we send this onto YouTube, it always surprises me. Like we start it, and then it makes this noise, and then I have to go and I have to make the noise go away. Oh, actually, that didn't happen this time. All right, well, we're going to start again. Okay, here's the official true beginning.
And you're going to record.
And I'm going to record. Yes, thank you, Kathleen. Okay, got it. Here we go. Hello and welcome to Jung at Harp, episode 98. Today we're going to talk about balance, internal balance, external balance, balance in many things. I don't even know what we're going to be talking about in terms of balance because this is a conversation. Each week, Kathleen and I come here with a question we want to explore that we may know some things about, we may each know different things about. It's all about what we discover together in the conversation with you and with each other. I'm Deborah Henson-Conant, and this is Kathleen Wiley. I am a composer, a performer, and a coach. Kathleen is a Jungian psychoanalyst. We both play the harp, and so we call this Jung at Harp. Kathleen, you were the one who suggested we talk about balance today, and then I got excited because I was thinking about how little kids learn to walk and how that's so much about balance. And I started thinking about when we play the harp, when we start learning, there is a kind of unbalanced, and I'm always talking about fluency. So I was thinking about where balance and unbalance relate to fluency in our playing and our speaking. And of course, I need lots of balance in my life. And I'm interested in how balance relates to being grounded at the same time as being mobile, being grounded and mobile. So,
yeah. I'm thinking about that because what we are talking about is a balance that is fluid, a balance not that's static and fixed, but a balance that's fluid. The reason I started thinking about balance is that yesterday was the equinox, and the spiritual tradition that I follow says that within 48 hours of the equinox, you have an opportunity to do ritual to connect with the magnetic energies of the earth that are in balance at the equinox in order to have the energy that's needed for the next cycle of one's work of consciousness. And the fall equinox ushers in a time of doing one's personal work, whereas the spring equinox ushers in a time of doing work that serves the outer world. So it's that balance of inner and outer. And isn't it in some ways that's what allows us to be fluid and mobile? If I get too caught up in what other people want me to do, what the collective says is the right thing, what I've learned from other people, and I get away from what I know about the laws of my own nature, then I get out of balance and I end up not being able to move fluidly in the world. I mean, Jung says this is the heart of neurosis, is one-sidedness. We get too identified with one side. Anyway, there's a lot stirring.
Yeah, there's a lot that I'm thinking about that I'm kind of seeing in my mind's eye as you're talking. As you talked about a rigid balance versus a fluid balance, I was thinking about something that's balanced that could fall at any point. And then I'm thinking about what happens when we walk. And I have a friend who walks really slowly. And when I walk with him, I find it's hard for me to keep my balance because I realized I'm not necessarily focused on my balance in each moment, and I'm utilizing the movement of the walk to create an experience of balance. But if I just stand there or if I walk very slowly, it takes a lot of focus to be balanced. And I don't know what I think about that, because I think a lot about balance in terms of what I see happen in myself when I'm trying to learn something new and when I'm coaching people who are playing the harp. So the people who I work with tend to fall into two camps. harpists who have played their whole lives and as classical players and were brought up in that tradition, and now they're feeling stuck in that tradition, and harpists who have begun later in life, sometimes after retirement. And so they don't have all that muscle memory, but they have a real deep connection to, why they want to do this. They have not lost that connection in any way. And I noticed with the second set of students and people I'm coaching that they are often stuttering, that they're falling off the strings, that there's not a certainty when they come to the strings. And I do remember that myself. And I think about that as being a balance, even though it's not like I'm falling off, but if I go to place my finger, there's a balance coming in this way too. And I remember trying to learn that, interestingly, by not playing. So there's something about like if I want to really practice getting a connection between here and the balance between what I want to do and then I'm doing it, and it's my eyes are in balance with my body. Not playing actually is very powerful. And often if I do play, it will interrupt the connection between my eyes and what I'm trying to do. Right. So this is making me think that, and then I notice that I feel constantly off balance in my life when I'm trying to do things, especially new things. And I'm thinking that it is because I may be trying to put too many things into the sequence.
Yeah, I'm having several thoughts, and I made myself a couple of notes because I was thinking about, in my own experience of learning to play the harp, and even now, sometimes that going to the string and placing without plucking the string, it's like that developing that skill, that muscle memory, that knowing in the body of where you're going and what it feels like. And in a way, that is what happens when we learn to walk, that we start off and it's a trial and error, isn't it? I mean, little ones fall down a lot when they're learning to walk and they have to pull up on things. And there is something about learning the skill that is a part of balance. And also part of what we learn to do is we learn how to get back into center or balance when we start to topple. I mean, I'm thinking about walking again. And what I'm hearing you talk about when you walk more slowly is that you feel that little bit of toppling from side to side that when you're going quickly, you don't. And so that when you slow down, you're aware, there's a little bit of a toppling back. I'm thinking about a top spinning and how it goes from side to side.
Right.
There's a little bit of that kind of side to side that when you slow down, you experience it, and then you can begin to focus on it. And if you choose to begin to dialogue with what is that about? What is that indicative about and how you move and life? And often when we move fast in terms of our conversations, in terms of our daily schedule, we do get a little off balance. We get a little spin because we are, in a sense, putting too many things in the sequence.
That's interesting. So as you're saying that, I'm thinking about walking with my friend who walks very slowly. And in order to walk with him, I have to really think hard. Like I have to really think about each step and rebalance in each step. And I don't know what impact it has on the other things that on when I'm running or something like that. So it sounds like we're talking on two different sides of this, which is wonderful, which is how sometimes speed gives us a sense of fluency or balance, and sometimes how slowing down can let us get more aware of where we're out of balance, and address it. The other thing that I kind of wanted to bring into the mix here is that I was trying to come up with an exercise for Harp Time Live, where there's harpists of all different levels, and I like to give them something that they can do at any technical level. And so I'm so comfortable on this side of the harp, and my eyes and everything is. So I thought, well, what would happen? Could I recreate my sense of disorientation that I had when I first started the harp by coming over to the other side and literally either, playing with the same finger or playing with different fingers? And I found that I could, to a certain extent, create the same disorientation. Now, and I think that, in other words, so I'm literally was just playing. See, I already just did it. I wanted to go down for the next note, even though that's where it was. So I really have to reorient, and I would have to reteach myself if I wanted to add. I can't even, add the things that are that on this side of the harp, I can do this, but on this side of the harp, I can barely do that. Which is in the same exercise. What is that about?
Well, I think it's about a lot of things, but one of it is that familiarity. Familiarity does help us maintain a center or balance that we do not have to think about. So when you're on the side of the harp you normally play on, it's familiar. There's a lot of internal, I'm going to talk about it this way. There's a lot of internal feedback loop already laid down that you just drop into and it goes on automatic pilot. When you go to the opposite side of the harp that you're not current, there's no feedback loop that you drop into. And then we could get into talking about the benefit of those feedback loops or when they become ruts, which
exactly. And that's what I was thinking. Because I'm also very, very aware as I'm starting to trying to build teams, because I realize all of my projects are they're just bigger than I can manage myself. And yet was taught Gesundheit. I was taught to be fiercely independent from a child. That's what I was taught over and over and over again. And I feel completely off balance. I don't even know how to ask people what to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, it now that I'm saying it out loud, it is almost the same experience as I have from complete fluency on one side of the harp to just, I can't even see where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Now, and so as I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing, okay, this is really interesting. Clearly I have the facility. And it's simply disorientation. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can do something on this side, can't do it on the other side. I have a feeling that a physicist or the physical therapist or whatever would be like, I know what that is. That's the blah 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 blah. But whatever, it doesn't matter. I love discovering it for myself. Mm-hmm. I'm actually feeling stupid right now because I'm feeling, I'll bet somebody knows this and they're thinking that. And now I'm thinking, hey, you know what? Let go of that. Maybe that's true. And still, discovery is so different. The experience of discovery is so different and so beautiful, even if we discover the same thing over and over again that so many other people know, but we discover it for ourselves.
Yes. And maybe a physical therapist could talk about it in their language, but we're talking about it in our language. And being able to put something into language isn't necessarily the same thing as having a knowing experience in the body. One of the things that we do in my embodiment circle that opens to new members every solstice, not the equinox, but the solstice, is we work with building psychic muscles. And I always say we break down the psychic muscles we need to truly embody, to be in the moment and not get caught in a static balance, but have a balance that comes from a fluid pendulum swing and honoring of both sides. And we have to build the muscles that are needed. Most of us develop a sense of self that has value and worth and our competency from what we can do, what it is we're, quote, good at. So then when we go to do something like building and managing a team, or going to the other side of the harp to see what happens, we go into feeling stupid and all kinds of internal judgment, which really blocks the flow of our creative energy to see, okay, what is this like? What might I experience here that has value for me and value for others? How might I incorporate this side of the pendulum swing into my sense of self? But that means tolerating feeling all of those negative things that tend to come up when we move into the realm of the unknown.
I'm as you're saying this, I'm thinking about me and the harp. And I'm thinking that when I came to the harp was fine. It was fine. It had been fine for hundreds and thousands of years. And there wasn't anything, I wouldn't have thought I was coming or bringing anything new to the harp. And yet it was my frustration and inability to actually engage with it as it was that led to this instrument, which then, and I'd seen other people do it, but because of my relationship to Kamak, it became popularized so that now other people can wear the harp and can have this kind of an instrument, but it didn't exist. And I remember my frustration going through the process of like, this doesn't make sense. Why is it like this? So on the one hand, if I had said, but that's how it is. That's just how it is. That's what a harp is. It's 6 feet tall. It weighs 75 pounds. If you're going to play the harp, that's what you got. You got to sit down and you got to do that. But somehow through lots of frustration and like, no, but that doesn't work for me. Somehow I was able to have a mind that allowed that to change and transform for myself and others. That was great. Other parts of my life, I am stuck in this, like, no, I have to fit into this, even though it's not working for me over and over and over. Google Docs, for instance, where I can never find anything. I keep being off balance. And instead of saying, hey, this doesn't work, what do I need to do in order for this to work? What is the prototype that I need to create? And I remember that with a harp, being frustrated. I couldn't express what I wanted and eventually just made a prototype. And then there it was. So getting back to balance, when we're off balance, I'm thinking now, I could get better. I could build that muscle or whatever that is. Or I could think about, wait a minute, what is not working here? And maybe that's, you think it, here, 2022, it's all been figured out, blah, blah. But no, what matters something. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm hearing is that in order to have an authentic balance where you embody your wholeness, your fullness, you have to be true to the laws of you. And your frustration with the harp, those huge orchestral pedal harps, which are lovely, your frustration with that was actually something of your own, I want to say, larger self, the divine essence in you that was saying, no, this doesn't work according to the law of Deborah. This doesn't work according to how I'm wired and what all creative spirit wants me to pull together. So there's a balance we can try to achieve that accommodates to the outside world that ultimately makes us neurotic and really isn't a true balance, because on the other side is happening in the unconscious. Or we can say, okay, wait a minute, I've got to find my way with me. It's not just about the law of the outside world, but it is about the law of how I work. And, Jung says every individual psyche needs its own manual. I love that. He says we can have a generic manual before, according to how psyche works, but it gets fleshed out differently. So if we're going to have balance that is authentic and the kind of balance that allows you to play the music of your heart and soul and allows you to live the fullness of who you are, that has to be a balance between who I am innately and the outside world. And I have to find my way. You did that with the DHC light. And your frustration was the catalyst. So frustration doesn't mean we're wrong, or it doesn't mean even that our feeling off balance is bad. Frustration's an invitation. You took it. You took that invitation, or it propelled you. You might have, I mean, it might have taken you instead of you taking it. Sometimes that's the way these things work.
It's interesting because as you're saying that, I'm remembering the trajectory, and it's really meaningful right now because this in middle October, this is the end of September, I'm going to do a performance up at a place called Celebration Barn up in Maine. And it's my first like full performance at post-pandemic. And I'm really excited about it. The Celebration Barn was where I took my harp to go study with a man named Tony Montanaro, who was known as the guru of street performers, I think. And he was a storyteller. He was a mime, but he didn't wear whiteface, and he talked. His mime was all about physical eloquence. And I took the harp to him, and I took a big concert harp, that's all I had, put it in the middle of the floor, and I said, I hate this. I'm stuck behind this. I don't know what to do. And I remember one of the things that we did with that, we were there was a group of us, is I put it on the floor and we did something called rounds, where everybody went around and played with the harp. And at first they were playing with the harp like a harp, but then they were exploring and they were doing different things with it. And one guy said, can I move it? And this was an older funky harp that I had. And I said, yep, you can do anything. And he changed it. He put it on the floor, and I think he strode it like it was a horse or something. And in that moment, I experienced what I experienced was that my body could have a different relationship to the instrument. And something just snapped in my brain, and that was the beginning of being able to conceive that I might have a more physical, different relationship with it, that I could dance and play, I could sing and dance and play, I could be a musical. This could provide that. And boy, do I wish I could have that kind of a shift with Google Docs. And I mean, I'm just saying that because it is a place in which I feel completely disoriented, frustrated, and like I feel like people are constantly sending me these documents and I don't know where they are, and they're all named differently, and there's no conventions and blah, blah. And I'm supposed to know where they are. And, but it's occurring to me that this came out of play. It came out of stopping trying to do it right, or figuring out how to do it right. And it came out of this thing that Tony had, which was called rounds. And rounds was all about what are all the different things that you can see with this instrument? What are all the different things that you can do? How can you stop seeing it as an instrument? How do you start seeing it as, put an egg through it and it's an egg slicer? How do you see it as a ski slope? How do you see it as like pretending that you're, whatever you're doing with it? How do you make believe your way into a new dimension through playing with it? I know how to do that with a harp. I can, because I learned it from Tony. Boom, how do I do it with Google Docs?
Yeah, it's interesting. And what you're saying is making me think about this book that I've mentioned a couple of times before, The Extended Mind by Annie Murphy Paul. She's a science writer. And in this book, she's writing about how science now shows that thinking happens beyond the brain. The thinking is not a function of the brain alone. And so if I'm remembering correctly, the three main sections in the book are thinking with sensation, thinking with environment, and thinking with other people. And Tony was a wise man, and he set up a situation where all of those elements, got activated. And in that moment, you saw this group member riding your orchestral harp like a horse or whatever. There was a sensation. You were thinking with your sensations,
Right.
and something shifted. It opened a door. And of course, you were thinking with other people
Right.
involved and with the environment. That's part of the value of what you do in Hip Harp Academy. You
Right.
provide that, what I do in the online circles. So in some ways, balance is also a function of something other than our logic reason. And sometimes with things like Google Doc and technology, we want to be able to use functions like intuition that just don't work when it comes to something that's got a programmed schema. And it becomes like math. You just have to learn that 9 times 5 is 45. So you have to learn.
I just want to say it's not like math, because math makes sense. So math is born out of, I hear about the learning the times tables, but I think what you said right before that this is something that was created. The logic was created by a human. It wasn't created. It was not discovered. It was imposed. It's a structure that it was imposed.
That's interesting.
And it was imposed by the best they could, and it probably grew and whatever. And it's like Hip Harp Academy. You try to find something in there. I tried to impose order in it, but because it didn't exist in advance, I could not discover the order of it. And what's been so powerful to me about music and the harp and training the harp is I discovered the order. I discovered that the harp has the capabilities of mirroring and, that allow me to really orient much more easily on the instrument.
No, but you're making a really good point again. Since we're talking about balance on both sides, there's an order that is natural.
Right.
And that is innate. And there's an order that is created by humans and imposed.
Right.
And, if there are any software programmers out there or coders who know about this, you can chime in with it. Send us some comments about this. But what you're saying, I think it's interesting. So that if you're going to work with something that's an imposed structure, then you have to learn that imposed structure. It's like learning the script.
Right. And guess what? It keeps changing. And this is one of the things that this is one of the things I love about an instrument, and why I think that anyone playing an instrument, it actually provides balance in your life.
Yeah.
In that the instrument never changes. And I know that a lot of, people who start buying instruments, they get this one and then this one, and then they try this and then they try this. Part of what I think is so deeply, deeply powerful is the ability to develop mastery and virtuosity, even at tiny levels, because the instrument stays the same. It doesn't, now we're going to put these down here. Oh, no. And so, all right. So here we have reality, and we're coming to near the end. We have reality, which is that Google Docs allows for collaborative work. It's got, it was built by humans. There are a lot of capabilities it doesn't have for whatever reasons. It doesn't make sense, and it's linear. There's just a whole bunch of things you can't actually, there's no logic that I know of to how someone sends me a document, or it just kind of like comes in. It's like mail. I don't know where to find it. It's like birds that come into the house and fly around. So if I'm going to, all right. So I want to look at this as someone who's starting the harp might look at it, starting an instrument, because I remember in the beginning, there was that lack of connection, and I didn't see all of those. And I think that I can help myself by using the things that I do have, like a piece of paper, or things that I feel I shouldn't have to do, like create a list of my Google links and organize them there so that at least they can be alphabetized. I shouldn't feel that I don't I feel that I shouldn't need a helper thing. But the fact is, I often do need a helper thing, whether it's a helper person or whether it's a ancillary, like all the books in the library, they don't put themselves in order. Well, a human does. I don't know, that might not be a good example. Anyway, that I need that in order for me to have balance with the things that are off balance, I actually need to create a balancing thing. So for example, when people are taking Hip Harp Academy and maybe they don't know where stuff is and it's a little bit hard to find things, it would be great if I provided if the person who created it provided a like, hey, here's how it all works and here's where it all makes sense. But I notice when I take online classes, they do the best they can. And I need to impose my own order. So I need to have that, what is it, the Rosetta Stone, where their order and my order, their language and my language can somehow, and I need to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Right. Well, you know, I'm always struck by how so often you're talking about playing with freedom. And it makes me think about a book by Erich Fromm written, I don't know, probably 40s or 50s, Escape from Freedom. How many of us, you know, we don't want to take the responsibility. And that's another whole topic for us to talk about, how that gets kicked in. But you're saying something I think that's really important for us as we're bringing to a close talking about balance, is that we do have to balance and hold that part of us that emotionally doesn't want to do something, that wants it to just be in our primary language, and that part of us that needs that helper, and give ourselves support to be able to work with that. You know, balance doesn't happen without the right support. Whether the right support is a person or the right support, for me, sometimes it's Googling videos. Somebody out there has made a video about how to do it. I learned something in iMovie last week because I Googled, you know, how do you do this? And I found this guy, Mac Most, you know, I thought, okay, he's my new best friend online, you know, but we have to have that. And I think we sometimes get frustrated, and then instead of doing what you did around the harp and reaching for the other side where you want to feel calm and delight with it, we collapse into despair. And if there's anything I think the fall equinox teaches us about balance, is everything has its place. You know, there's a time when there's the greatest light, and there's the time when there's the day is the most darkness. And if we just keep on moving, we go through those cycles. And I believe, and have seen over my decades of work with people analytically, we can learn how to go through that more quickly. In other words, sometimes it can feel like, God, it's taken me years to get out of this darkness, or years to get to the other side. And sometimes it does. But with consciousness, and as we build that internal self, I also think there are places then where it just kind of goes like a lightning flash. And those are the moments where it's like that aha you had with the heart being ridden like a horse kind of becomes more day to day in little things, you know. But
wow. So what I'm hearing is that we can cultivate a balance that allows us to actually allow more in. And as you were talking, and I was thinking about helper things, I was thinking about high wire, people who walk on a high wire and who have that big balancing thing. And, you know, instead of being, no, you have to walk on the high wire without the balancy thing, to actually listen to myself and think, yeah, instead of being like, you're not good at this, be like, what do you need in order to have the experience of being able to do this?
Yes. Yes.
What do you need? What things do you need in order to have the experience of being able to do this? and whether I think I should need to create that for myself or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have this entitlement. No, they should provide that. It's a can. It should have a can opener, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
To actually take responsibility
Mm-hmm.
and balance and collaborate with the creative, minds that have given me whatever they've given me. And instead of resenting what's not there, to help me to get whatever helper thing that I need.
Yeah.
So that I actually can engage and collaborate and then be sometimes part of the innovation as well.
Yes. Absolutely.
Wow. Well, my takeaway from today, what time is it? I can't see the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to get off.
Yeah.
My takeaway from today is to actually find that pull for myself, that balance pull,
Mm-hmm.
wherever it is and whatever, so that I can actually be engaged.
I love that. And I'm going to really hold, how do I balance the law of my nature with the law of the outer world?
I love that too. I love that. The laws of Deborah Henson-Conant.
Yeah, and because I think we all can, and I get caught sometimes going into the tirade against myself when I don't fit into the collective, and that doesn't do anything but get me more one-sided. It doesn't help me move toward balance. And when I can honor, okay, this is my rhythm. Now, how do I work within this that has this other rhythm? A little bit like music, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then I can find that balance that allows that swing back and forth, but not this extreme where I topple, but this kind of little. Yeah.
Well, that's something I would love to talk about that fitting one rhythm into another. That's another subject, but wow, I love that. Well, Kathleen, thank you again for a wonderful, wonderful conversation. That's really going to change my day and my week and my life.
Yeah, thank you too. It's always so rich.
It is. And I'll see you next week. And thank you to everybody who's watching this live and who watched it afterwards. Thank you for being part of this conversation with us and in your own lives. And farewell. Go forth